Hello and welcome. I'm Ijoma Onyato. Tonight, Nigeria Police Council confirms Muhammad Adamu as Substantive Inspector General of Police. Presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, raises alarm over alleged plan to cause crisis in parts of the country and accuse him of being responsible. Latest reports from United States Agency for International Development claims conflicts in Nigeria's North Central have contributed to over 7,000 deaths and cost the economy over $13 billion a year. An Indian Prime Minister is re-elected for another 5 years in office following landslide victory in the general election.
On Business News tonight, House of Representatives indicts 15 banks for under-remittance of over 1.5 billion naira worth of duty stamps.
And on Sports News tonight, quarterfinalists emerge at the season 11 of the channel's International Kids Cup after 3 days of group action.
And from Abuja, Federal High Court convicts former Acting Director General of Nigeria Maritime Administration and Safety Agency, NIMASA, Callisto Zobi, for alleged 136 million naira fraud.
After working in acting capacity for more than 5 months, the Acting Inspector General of Police, Muhammad Adamu, has finally been confirmed as the Substantive Inspector General of Police by the Police Council. Mr. Adamu's confirmation comes after he was appointed in acting capacity on January the 15th, when he took over from the former IGP, Ibrahim Idris. His confirmation was announced at the Police Council meeting with President Muhammadu Buhari presiding. Mr. Muhammad Adamu is now Nigeria's 20th Inspector General of Police.
The Council looked at the record of the Acting Inspector General of Police, who had been in the saddle now since the 15th of January 2019. And a cross-section of members of council were very clear that given his passion, his commitment, his professionalism, and his extensive experience locally and internationally, his interim appointment as Acting Inspector General of Police was approved and confirmed a permanent appointment by the Police Council in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. We also identified with the challenges and the enormity of responsibilities that the Inspector General of Police would have to cope with at a time that security challenges are a bit daunting in our country, and all across the country we're dealing with banditry, robbery, kidnapping, and a host of challenges. But with the analysis and the quick response that he has given so far, we know that as an individual and as a leader of the force, he is more than well qualified, and all members of council attested to this.
Meanwhile, the new Inspector General of Police told journalists after the meeting that there is no need for the call for declaration of a state of emergency over the spate of killings, armed banditry and kidnapping, as there are plans to re-strategize and face the menace squarely. Mr. Adamu says the police have been given a tough task to make the country crime-free, and they have redoubled their efforts, re-strategize and reorganize the system to deal with the situation in the Northwest.
What it means for us is that we've been given a tough task to make sure that we make the country, we provide security within the country and make the country crime-free, which means we have to redouble our efforts. Whatever strategy we put in place, we have to look at it and re-strategize day in, day out to make sure that the insecurity in the country is brought down to the barest minimum. The security agencies within the country are capable of dealing with the situation. There is no need for call for a state of emergency. What we require to do is just to re-strategize and then face the criminals squarely.
To politics now, the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, has been speaking on the plans by those he described as anti-democratic elements to contrive skirmishes aimed at smearing his personality. In a statement by his media advisor, Paul Ibe, the former vice president says it's obvious that a plot is being orchestrated by some agents of evil to stage manage pockets of trouble targeted at attacking the reputation of Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. The statement reads, quote, "By the merit of what's beginning to unfold, there are plans to create some upset across the country, whereby alleged perpetrators of such crimes will engage in phantom name-dropping of Atiku Abubakar and some senior personalities in the People's Democratic Party," end of quote. The PDP presidential candidate is calling on the federal government to be alive to its responsibilities of providing security, ensuring peace, and to desist from actions and utterances that are capable of exposing the nation's fault lines. In the final analysis, the former vice president is demanding an apology from the Minister of Information, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, and called for his arrest for falsely accusing him and his party, the PDP, of planning to upstage the government. Now, persistent rural violence stemming from farmer and pastoralist conflict in the north-central part of Nigeria is a serious threat to Nigeria's future. And that's according to the mission director of the United States Agency for International Development, Mr. Stephen Haken, who says the violence has contributed to the death of 7,000 Nigerians, costing the economy over 13 billion naira a year. Mr. Haken was represented by his democracy officer, Dr. Beatrice Food, at the close of their projects in Abuja. Our correspondent, Amaka Okafo, reports.
In recent years, violent conflicts between nomadic herders from northern Nigeria and farmers in the central and southern region have escalated, threatening the nation's security and stability. This moved the USAID to develop a project in 2015 called Engaging Communities for Peace in Nigeria, to provide farmers and pastoralists tools to peacefully manage the conflict. They explained their findings in the course of this activity.
Conflict between farmers and herders results in destruction of crops, blocked access to water points, and degradation of water quality, factors that have equally hindered the livelihoods of crop farmers and livestock herders, and drives the conflict between them. As the population grows and climate change diminishes natural resources, communities in the Middle Belt that once cooperated over these resources now must compete for increasingly scarce land and water, and consequently livelihood opportunities.
The project, she explains, has led to the resolution of 600 disputes in these communities. She wants the Nigerian government at all levels to embrace mediation and negotiation to sustain the tempo.
A heightened understanding of mediation and negotiation brought more than 600 disputes in the communities where we have worked over grazing routes, seasonal access to water points, crop damage, cutting down of economic sources, water pollution by animals, and commerce to peaceful resolution.
Although the project has ended, the USAID have assured Nigerians that their commitment towards mitigating conflict in the country remains firm, and also hopes that the relationship built will sustain peace in the region.
And while that effort is on, the people of Ubuluku community in Delta State are worried about recent attacks on farmers in their community, and they're calling on the state government to come to their aid. Tension rose after gunmen allegedly killed a farmer, Chief Albert Chikwe, while another young man was said to have escaped from the farm with a bullet wound. Our correspondent Vivian Oramadike reports.
Uneasy calm in Ubuluku community, a Nyocha South local government area of Delta State. Farmlands deserted for fear of more attacks by suspected herdsmen after the news of the death of 60-year-old Albert Chikwe, who was allegedly murdered while working on his farm about 3 days ago. Until his death, the late farmer lived in this house alone. His brothers give account of what transpired.
They have deserted that farm something because of the fear of being killed. This man said, okay, let him go back there and make little farm. He has started planting according to them because I no longer farm there. So on his way back, they killed him. They shot him dead.
Other farmers in the community also recount their experiences.
The attack has been like that. You see our women, they hardly go to farm, our mothers, our wives. And the most unfortunate aspect of it is that even after cultivating, they come to your barn of yam. They use cutlass, they slice everything down. They get to your hut, they destroy it.
After losing their traditional ruler who was allegedly kidnapped and killed in 2015 by suspected herdsmen, the palace spokesperson says the community is yet to recover from the shock.
It appears as if they have descended on Ubuluku alone. I don't know the reason, whether somebody invited them to come and invade Ubuluku.
A representative of the state government calls for calm to allow for proper investigations to unravel what actually transpired.
We heard about that, and the security agents on it, they're investigating. I cannot preempt the investigation until they come out with the actual issue.
The death of Mr. Albert Chikwe is one that has brought fear to the residents of Ubuluku community. They hope to see the perpetrators brought to book and security in the area beefed up to avoid a recurrence. Vivian Oramadike, Channels Television News.
And still looking at efforts to find peace, the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, is asking governors not to stoke fires of ethnicity and religious conflicts through their unguarded utterances. Professor Osinbajo explains that the governors have a duty to protect the vulnerable and not advance a negative political agenda. He was speaking during a valedictory meeting of the National Economic Council at the State House. Our correspondent, Gloria Umezuke, reports.
The National Economic Council is meeting again. This time, it's their last. All the members, including the 36 governors, are present. The Vice President and Chairman of the Council, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, presides over the valedictory session.
The special net that we had, the retreat we had.
The Council launched an 80-page legacy document containing 173 resolutions reached to address issues of national importance.
That we have positively contributed to the...
And when it was time for reflections, the governors bared their minds.
We've done very well in debating and articulating policies, but implementation has not been as robust as the process of policy formulation and resolution.
I want you to stand with one another, to stand by one another, to stand for the Nigerian nation.
Each governor from the 6 geopolitical zones, including former governor of Osun State, who is invited, spoke.
If I look at my left and look at my right, even the worst of them, like the Oshimoles and Erufais, even within this, I still feel as members of family. And this people I've mentioned, Mr. Chairman, I do not know why you share one thing in common with them. May I request you to distance yourself henceforth?
According to the outgoing chairman of the Nigeria's Governors Forum, the country needs more planning to succeed.
If we did not plan, Mr. Chairman, we're sitting on time bomb. And that's the truth. All what is happening, more especially where I came from, is the reflection of what is going on in our economy. Mr. Chairman, we have a very, very gigantic job, and we have to stand up now. As leaders, we have a duty to keep the peace.
The Vice President further asked outgoing governors not to rest on their oars.
Frequently, our political elite, sometimes out of advancing political agendas or simply seeking relevance,
recklessly stoke the fires of ethnicity and religious conflict. I think we must, as leaders, who have a duty to keep the peace and welfare of our state.
Amidst the challenges talked about here, the outgoing governors have been asked to use the experiences to influence change for a better society in the next few years. From the presidential villa, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
In part 2, after the break, death toll from Wednesday's Onisha building collapse rises to 5 as rescue officials comb rubble of fallen 3-story building. That's in a moment. We'll stay with us.